Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for the Orns 10-minute take on Watford 1, Burnley 2. Well, a tale of two halves today at the Vic. Watford coming out with the energy and the passion and the intensity required to win these kinds of games. An energy that was not present throughout the majority of the time this season at the Vic. An energy that looked promising, a forward thinking approach, a mentality to go for it, to move the ball quickly, to get in and around Burnley, to trouble their defense. That was one of the things, many of the things that I had called for, troubling Burnley's defense, giving the goalkeeper, Mark Pope, something to think about. And Watford did that in the first half. In fact, they did it in the eighth minute of the game, very early on. The eighth minute of the game, Kuchka with a shot that hit the crossbar and rebounded down to James Tarkowski, the Burnley defender, and captain, and into the back of the net it went. Burnley scoring the goal in the wrong end. Watford with the 1-0 lead. And Watford continued to press. They looked good. They looked lively, dynamic, forward thinking, as I said, and moving the ball quickly as much as they could. They were up for it in that first half, a spirit about the team. Musa Sissoko said during the week that this was a cup final, a must win. And if they didn't win it, they were done. And, well, second half came, and whatever electricity bill had been paid at the Vic in the first half, well, they turned off the lights in the second half, didn't they? The electricity was gone. The passion wasn't there. And the team reverted to the Watford that we have seen all season at the Vic. The Watford that doesn't really push forward. The Watford that just invites teams on. The Watford that leaves lots of spaces and gaps. The Watford that just doesn't show you any heart or fight. And by the way, consistent with those things, Watford went down with a whimper in the second half. They defended too deep from the off, which was completely unnecessary. One of the big criticisms that I have about this team is they're defending too deep when they don't need to, sitting back when they don't need to. It's inevitable that Burnley were going to grow into the game. In fact, the warning signs were there in the first half when Burnley started to grow into the game, roughly around the 25, 30-minute mark. And you saw Dwight O'Neil begin to be the continuous terror that he has been for Burnley in a load of these games for them. And of course, today, in that first half, there was a warning sign. The referee pointed to the spot, and Watford hearts were in mouths. But Stuart Atwell, so much the villain when it comes to VAR, smartly made the right call. The foul was just outside the box. A free kick came to nothing. But that was your warning sign in the first half that Watford had to be at it and they needed to get that second goal to kill off the game. A second goal would have killed off this Burnley side today. Burnley were at 6s and 7s in that first half, not settled, not rooted, not at all attached to the previous 4 games where they had been so successful. But Burnley were going to grow into this game. As I said, the second half was exactly what happened. Burnley growing into the game and Watford settling deep from the very start of the second half. Absolutely perplexing as far as I'm concerned. Now, Watford really did not muster a fight. They were content, as they've done all season, to cling to a 1-0 lead. And the moral of the story is you cannot ever sit on a 1-0 lead, especially at home, especially at home. And Watford's failure to bring the required industry and nous to the second half of this game was what cost them. A big part of that failure, though, was the Watford manager, Roy Hodgson, who announced earlier this week that he was retiring. Well, he certainly retired during this game because in the second half especially, Roy Hodgson did not see a need to make a substitution. Why not? Why wouldn't you make a substitution, Roy? You saw the players were getting tired. And when you are defending and defending and defending, you are expending so much more energy. You have to be mentally focused, switched on. You have to be in the right spaces and places on the pitch. You have got to give 1000% physical exertion and mental effort. You have to concentrate. You have to defend. You have to work. You have to position your body. You have to get yourself into defensive spaces where Burnley don't want to be. You've got to expend so much more energy when you're defending. And Roy Hodgson, who's been around football now for what, 50 odd plus years, sat there and sat there. He put his shades on, he took them off. He put on his clear, regular glasses, took them off, put the shades back on. He made more switches of eyewear in that second half than he made substitutions. None. He made no substitutions at all. I don't know if Roy Hodgson can spell the word substitution because he didn't make a single one in this game. And the game required it. The stakes required it. All we wanted today was a Watford side that was going to show fight. Well, job done first half. But the second half, they just went back to the negative tactics of old, the negative tactics of this manager. One of the reasons why the Watford fan base want him out, most of them, many of them, the most vocal of them want him out, is because this is who he is. Roy Hodgson has shown us who he is. He is not the manager for this club, for this team. He is not. He has taken a couple of these games off, Roy Hodgson, as a manager. And ever since he's come in, one thing that he has done is given a structure to the team. And although the defense improved today, the defending just completely collapsed late on. And that's because the team was exhausted. And I don't understand what Roy Hodgson thought that he was seeing out there. I don't know what he thought. But what I saw out there was a tired team that expended all this energy defending. And it didn't have to defend so deep. It really didn't. And when you saw that, Roy, you had to make a change. He didn't. No substitutions, no changes. Why? Were all the players on the bench injured? Utterly perplexing, but this has happened over and over again this season. Roy Hodgson has either made no substitutions or made late substitutions, or has made substitutions that don't make sense, like taking off Lauser in the second half against Arsenal a couple of months ago, almost now, back in March, almost 2 months ago. I don't understand that. Like making late substitutions against Brentford that didn't make sense because you should have made those substitutions a lot earlier. Like making 65-minute substitutions when you should have made them in the second half. That has been Roy Hodgson ever since he's come into Watford. Watford just absolutely have suffered under this manager. And yes, despite some upticks in the defending, it has been the same old song, like the Four Tops say. The same old song with a different meaning since you've been gone. Since Ranieri's been gone, since Cisco's been gone, since Nigel Pearson's been gone, since Kike's been gone, since Javi Gracia has gone. I mean, we can just go back. How many managers do you want to go back to? Nothing's changed at this club. Nothing in terms of the play on the pitch, at least. The mentality has not changed. It hasn't. How are you sitting deep on a 1-0 lead at home? At home. How does that make any coherent sense? How are you sitting back at home on a 1-0 lead? That's understandable against a Manchester City if you're at the Etihad. Heck, it might even be understandable if you're playing Manchester City at the Vic. But at home against Burnley, you were sitting back on a 1-0, defending deep from the second half start. They defended deep the entire second half. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, dearie me. I really don't understand it. I really don't. And by the way, this result was entirely predictable. Entirely predictable. Just the way the Brentford game was entirely predictable. Just the way the Leeds game was entirely predictable. Watford have now lost 11 consecutive home games in the league. Prior to now, only one team had ever lost more than 10 consecutive league matches at home. That was Rochdale, then in the third division. In 1932, today, 90 years later, 90 years later, Watford joined them. This has been a Orns 10-minute take.